The place to be is right here with me. It is Random Topic Thursdays, the hottest live stream on channel GBoo2786 and Gavin Richard, and on Periscope at Gavin Rich 2786, and on Facebook, whoever you are, wherever you are. I hope you are blessed and doing safe. Tonight on this channel, we're going to keep talking about it. We are discussing the follow-up, the Bill Cosby being released from prison, and a Supreme Court of Pennsylvania saying that the case was tainted. We'll also be talking about Janet Hubert throwing shade at Felicia Rashad over her support of Cosby, and also Howard University throws Felicia Rashad under the bus. A lot of things to talk about, a lot to get in. And joining me today, of course, are our special guests. I'm waiting for one in particular. We have Shawn James, who's here. What's up, Shawn?
What's going on, Gavin? How are you?
I'm doing fine, Shawn. Feeling great. And Shawn, of course, is the author of The Man Crisis. He's also written over 74 books, 75 books total. And Shawn's latest books, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess and John Haynes Taking Care of Business, are available on Amazon. And we're also joined by veteran journalist Al Lanier Jr. Al, how are you doing? All the way from Hawaii. Al, can you hear us? Al? Okay, seems like we're having a...
Right.
Can you hear me?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Looks like you're frozen, buffering a little bit there. I'm waiting for our other guest, attorney Andrew Jones. I'm going to try to find out where he is. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, before we start the show, of course, we got to kick it off with a little music. So you guys sit back and relax and enjoy the show as we'll be talking more topics, Random Topic Thursdays, here on channel GBoo2786. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, as I stated before, it's time to get on up. If you have not done so already, please check out my latest single on iTunes, Spotify, and Apple, and stream. Got to get on up. It's time to dance.
Girl, come on. Gotta dance to the beat, because on the dance floor is where we're moving. Show them what you got. Gotta feel the groove. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on. Right now the party's wasted. There's nothing much to do. But once the groove gets started, tell me, what do you have to lose? Just look into my eyes, girl, as we glide across the room. And what to my surprise now, the beat takes hold of you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really moving, start to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something up. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Tell the DJ play the whispers. Rock steady in the mood. Put on earth, wind, and fire. Tonight we're gonna groove. Show me how you do the four corners. Electric slide or two. Hit the bus stop or do the bunny hop, baby. It's really up to you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, start to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something up. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Now, 2020 hasn't been the best year of all times. We've been dealing with death, the pandemic, racism, bad policing, and all the bad rhymes. But like Uncle Snoop once said, if you're breathing, you're achieving. So if you're ready, I need you all to get on up. Are you ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Get your butt on the dance floor. 5 and 6 and 7, 8. This jam we appreciate. We're gonna slide and step on the beat. On the dance floor is where we'll feel the groove. Get on the floor. Get on up and move your body. 'Cause when the beat is really grooving, start to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something up. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Yeah, gotta get on. Come on, baby, gotta get on. Baby, feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm gonna get a copyright claim again, but fuck it. That's how he should have came out of prison. Oh yeah, this brings back memories. Thursday nights on NBC. Pizza night, baby. Cosby, A Different World. Night Court. Oh yeah. I don't care if the feminists get mad. Bill Cosby is free. See, good evening, everyone. Good evening. I don't care if people get mad. Let them get mad. People get mad at everything. People get mad if you tell them God bless you. People get mad if you tell them the truth. That's their problem. I have said for the last 2 years, I told you that this case was tainted. I told you that it was motivated by lies and money. I told you about the prosecutor and the nasty shit he was doing. I told you that what they were doing was illegal and unethical, how he campaigned against getting Bill Cosby. I told you. And I had to argue with some of you, especially some of you Negroes, and of course you white supremacists, your cockroaches out there, who want to argue back and forth with me. You're still arguing back and forth with me, trying to say it's a technicality. There is no technicality when it comes to the Constitution of the United States, baby. I earned my law degree with sweat, with tears, with blood. I know what I was talking about, but I'm excited. This is people are mad. I don't care. Y'all should see them. And some of these bootlicks on Twitter. Oh my goodness. We'll get to Janet Hubert in a second. We're gonna talk about a bunch of people. We're gonna talk about it all, but we gotta welcome our guest because I'm trying to get our other guest on. He's having a little trouble logging in. Oh, Harvey said, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. We changed the lyrics up. We said, we told you so, we told you so, we told you so. I got to put a lyrics to that Cosby beat. Yes, I'm free, baby. I'm really free. Yes, I'm free. It's really me, pudding. I'm not gonna hold up our guests any further, but I'm excited. I'm still riding on this high because I feel vindicated. I told people you got to pay attention to what the facts are, and we're gonna analyze a lot that was said because people missed out on stuff. Oh, I'm being told I'm loud, but okay. In my own home. We're gonna bring in our guest, Al Lanier, Shawn James. I'm waiting for Andy to come on. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening. As it's good evening there, obviously.
Good afternoon to you, Al. Excuse me.
No problem.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm doing okay. It's been a little busier than I expected because I was on a show called We All Be TV yesterday discussing this case with Judge Joe Brown. So,
and Ron Hurd.
And that was a good discussion. Yeah, go ahead.
Ron's show. Ron Hurd. Shout out to Ron.
That's
We All
right.
Be. And
that was a good show. It's a good show. Nice to have a legal perspective.
Oh, yes. And we're going to have legal talk about it, too. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, you know who this person is. Let me just, to Al, first and foremost, before I get to Shawn, you guys can find Al on Twitter. I want everybody to get Al's Twitter information. Al, why don't you give out your Twitter?
Yes, it's at Critic Inc. That's at ampersand or a sign for those who want it so simply. Well, that's technically not ampersand. You know, at CRITICINC. That's again at CRITICINC at Critic Inc.
All right. Okay, Al, I think you got some wind there, so I'm gonna mute you for a second while I talk to Shawn. Hold on. Is that you or is that Shawn?
No, it must be my phone.
No, I mean the wind. I'm hearing wind.
It might be my fan because it's hot in here in New York.
Sorry, I accused you. It was Shawn. My mistake.
No, but it was really hot in New York, and real hot.
All right, you can leave your fan on. I just was it was just blowing in the mic.
Oh, I don't want it to disrupt the flow of the show. So.
All right. Well, I don't want you sweating to have a heat stroke while we're talking either.
Yeah.
So. But Shawn, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm dandy. Shawn, of course, is the author. I don't know if you know Shawn, Al, but I've had him on my channel lots of times. He is an author. He has written over 75 books, including The Man Crisis. His latest books include Revenge of the Cyber Goddess and John Haynes Taking Care of Business. And he has a YouTube channel here on self-entitled Shawn James. Shawn, it's a pleasure to have you on. We're waiting on Andrew to come on in. I get another guest, but we'll go ahead and get started. How have the book sales been going, Shawn?
Well, last month we did pretty good, but I'm still trying to get back to that milestone of May with the 100 sales. And everybody can help out by picking up one of the books in the 2021 catalog, John Haynes Taking Care of Business, ISIS Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, or one of the other books like Eternal Night on Amazon in paperback and Kindle format, because I'm looking for my first paperback and ebook sale for the month of July. And everybody can help me out by picking up one of the books on Amazon.com in paperback or Kindle format.
Okay, cool. Guys, also, I need you to, if you please hit the Cash App, Gavin Richard Esquire, Google Pay, and PayPal at gavin.grich1@gmail.com or Zelle at 504-289-4002. You can donate and contribute that way. Let's get into it, gentlemen. Yesterday, of course, the big news. Bill Cosby was released from prison. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court stated the case was tainted and that Bill Cosby's procedural due rights, his due process rights, were violated, and that the case was tainted. to the point that they cannot even bring this case back up at, they cannot retry him again. It cannot be retried for the same thing. So it is dismissed with prejudice. And they had to restore Dr. Cosby to his previous status. When it says here, and I'm going to share with you all the opinion because it's important to look at the opinion. It sounds like Shawn's laughing.
I'm thinking about something else.
Okay. They stated here, and I told you this, there is only one remedy that can completely restore Cosby to the status quo ante. That means before his conviction. He must be discharged, and any future prosecution on these particular charges must be barred. We do not dispute that this remedy is both severe and rare, but it is warranted here, indeed compelled. The CDO would shun this remedy because, at least in part, it might thwart the public interest in having the guilty brought to book. It cannot be gainsaid that society holds a strong interest in the prosecution of crimes. It is also true that no such interest, however important, ever can eclipse society's interest in ensuring that the constitutional rights of the people are vindicated. Society's interest in prosecution does not displace the remedy due to constitutionally aggrieved persons. Al, I want to start with you first. Where were you when this verdict was read? This decision came down. It came down about where I was about 11:30 in the morning yesterday. So it was just past morning.
Well, basically yesterday, as I noted, I was on a show called We All Be TV, and I was already slated to be on the show. And before that, I was on, I believe it was on my phone looking at something on YouTube. Somebody had mentioned in a chat section something about Cosby. And I didn't pay much attention to it. I was like, something about Cosby, something happened. And I got a text basically stating that the subject that I was going to talk about at one point, initially it was the show was going to be postponed. Then the show was going to be done and the Judge Joe Brown was going to be another guest on the show. And they were going to discuss Cosby. And basically that's how I had to find out about it, was because the topic I was supposed to discuss on the show got shelved in favor of this. But in the more than a decade of being on talk shows, podcasts, radio shows, etc., being interviewed, first time that ever happened. So I had this breaking news, quote unquote, happen. I guess it was a big breaking news day, and had to acquaint myself with what occurred. That's basically how I found out. I heard a little about it, but my mind was on other things, and then I had to find out about it because I was going to talk about it. And that's how essentially I found out.
Right. And we have been hearing about, we had been waiting for a decision to come down because I did a live stream last December. I was also a guest at the same time. I co-hosted on my channel, and I was a guest on her channel, Nicole. Shout out to Nicole's View, Nicole Lewis, for having me on the show. She's actually been the forerunner of this whole thing with Cosby because she said it was a farce of a trial. She attended actually trial there, at least for a day or two, and witnessed the bias in the media. And I want to talk with you about that a little bit later on, Al. But we were waiting for something to happen because he was waiting to hear back from the court after oral arguments in December of 2020. And it's now at the end of June 30th. It was well over 6 months when this happened. Shawn, what did you, obviously you were probably at home, but tell us what you were doing and what your reactions were when this came down.
Well, I had just gotten back from the laundry and I was recording some videos for the next day. And one of my viewers, Supremo, he sent me an email telling me about Bill Cosby being free. And then I quickly did a search online and read about Bill Cosby being released from prison. And after I heard about the terms of how he got released, I just stopped the video I had finished doing and started recording the video that I was going to do talking about Bill Cosby being released from prison. So I was at home just doing my regular work, and all of a sudden, one of my viewers comes in, sends me an email, and it pops up on my iPhone, and I immediately just went there and started recording the video because you told me on Facebook, you sent me a message telling me he had been let go, and then I was right in the middle of recording the video talking about it, and it was a real shock to me to hear it come that day, but I knew it was going to eventually come because I knew how the law worked. So I knew that eventually they were going to have to let him go based on the whole numerous judicial errors that were in the trial. So I mean, it was just a shock to see it come on that day, but I knew eventually it was going to come. And I'm really glad that Mr. Cosby is finally free. And this travesty of justice where this man was railroaded has been corrected by our courts.
Yes, I mean it was. I was stunned too. I was expecting as well, based off what I heard from the hearing officers from the Supreme Court when I watched the hearing. I was just anxious about it because I didn't know when it was going to come. But I had been hearing for a whole week that it was likely to come. They had reported it actually last week on YC News. Shout out to Nick from YC News that the appeal was going to be overturning the verdict or decision was coming, to the point where a lot of people don't know this, but this prosecutor, Kevin Steele, was fining Bill Cosby for unkept grass at his house. He was actually being fined as of last week. And I saw Andrew Wyatt was actually going down to the courthouse to go pay, or City Hall to go pay this fine. But apparently when he got the decision that was made, he drove back to the prison to go pick up Cosby from Phoenix Correctional Facility out in Phoenix, Pennsylvania. So, so this was big, and you were obviously happy that it happened. And this was more than just litigating the case. Al, when I look at it, they basically stated flat out due process was violated. Shawn, when you even look at this, and I want to pull it up further, I'm reading it as well. I'm reading from the case. They said the CDO would limit our assessment of harm suffered by Cosby to the Commonwealth's use of the deposition testimony at his two trials. But the harm is far greater than that, and it began long before even the first trial. It must be remembered that D.A. Castor's decision not to prosecute Cosby and to announce that decision orally and in a written press release was not designed to facilitate the use of testimony against Cosby in a future criminal trial. Instead, D.A. Castor induced Cosby's forfeiture of the Fifth Amendment rights as a mechanism and a lever to aid Constance's civil action and to improve the chances that she would receive at least a monetary benefit for the abuse that she suffered, given the D.A. Castor had determined Constance would not and could not get relief in a criminal trial. So let's just look at that aspect with Castor. When he did this plea deal, he did not believe that this trial, that this woman, this Andrea Constance, would be successful at trial. He made a decision that the case was not worth moving forward. So when he made this decision, he tells Bill Cosby and makes a press release saying, "I'm promising not to prosecute." He said this obviously orally. Now, to Cosby's fault and detriment, his lawyers at that time did not get it in writing and formally signed by a judge. However, what the court looked at here is that prosecutors still get great discretion when giving plea deals, and as a representative of the state in that district, their words hold weight.
Well, I will say this, having spoken to a prosecutor or two, and I think I've interviewed a prosecutor at least a couple times. Prosecutors have a lot of power. And when it comes to cases and crimes, as you probably are well aware of as a lawyer and as an attorney, prosecutors make decisions all the time as to what cases are going to trial, what cases they're going to plead out, what cases they're going to invest effort and money and attention on, and those they aren't. And Castor clearly did not want to go to trial or want to see a trial with this. one of the things that I point out, I think I pointed this out yesterday, and I'll point it out today, is you have to understand, you're talking about a county in Pennsylvania. You don't see national celebrities go on trial in Pennsylvania and parts thereof. You don't see it in the municipalities and cities and judicial districts and courts there in Pennsylvania, or in most states for that matter. So unless there's a reason for having a trial like that, and the reason is because most places couldn't handle such a trial, right? They wouldn't be able to handle it. It would be attention they don't want, because there's a lot of pressure. See, when you're at Los Angeles and New York are cities generally where you have celebrity trials, or where you celebrities wind up. If they're in trouble,
country.
go ahead.
They're the two largest cities in this country. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the cities where celebrities normally live to some extent, and where they are developed to a great extent. Film and TV in California, and maybe film and TV a little in New York, but music and fashion in New York. So those cities have to deal with that. Their police forces have to be able to deal with celebrities to a certain extent. Most cities and most towns and most states, they don't deal with celebrities. Even if they have celebrities with homes there, they just don't deal with it, right? So you have to look at this county in Pennsylvania. That probably the prosecutor did not only not want to go to trial, he did not want a big celebrity trial.
Right.
And he was thinking, it's going to be a headache. It's going to be a lot of resources you got to deal with. And it's going to give the inner office the kind of attention they don't want. So that was probably one motivation or one reason why Castor decided to go with the deal. You also have to look at the fact, but what's odd to me about this is the fact that it was a verbal deal and there was no written agreement, also involvement with the judge. And so that's the part I think that was sketchy, not so much sketchy about it, but I think that was fungible or flexible here. And again, I'm not an attorney.
Right.
I'm just an ex-journalist. So I'm just looking at this as a slightly informed layman and slightly informed person, not extremely. So I just want to make sure people understand that. But from my perspective, I look at this and I go, why was this not ironed down in terms of a written agreement? Signed off a judge.
I think I can answer that question for you. Why it wasn't signed off by a judge? I think, well, typically what they like to do, especially with settlements, is that our agreements, people take people for their word as attorneys, as hard as that is to believe. But here in Louisiana, I know every parish is different, but like for instance, when I worked in Baton Rouge, if we had agreements with the prosecutors to do plea deals, we didn't have to put it in writing. We would get what's called on the record and read that into the court record. There was no what was happening here. This all was pre-prosecution. There was no prosecution at this point. So actually, there was nothing really in truthfulness to sign off by a judge because he was not prosecuted. There was no bill of indictment. There was no grand jury indictment. Like that. So that's important to note. However, Bill Cosby, I do believe there was an email that was sent between the lawyers and the DA at that time, and he agreed not to prosecute. So yeah, that's true. I'm not going to prosecute it. And Castor actually gave a sworn affidavit stating that he was promising he was not going to prosecute Bill Cosby. However, and I don't think you talked about this on We All Be, the prosecutor, and it's important to note, Bruce Castor ran against Stephen T. O'Neill, who was the judge in this case.
The judge in the case. I did mention that. Yeah, but go ahead.
Right. They ran, well, I don't know if you mentioned this point. This was back in the 90s. But Castor exposed an affair that O'Neill had with a former prosecutor that worked with Bruce Castor. And he actually had her come to the debate. So Castor, obviously, when Stephen O'Neill states that he is not going to allow Bruce Castor to testify at Bill Cosby's trial, do you think it's because he has a bias, or do you think it's based off evidence? I think it's more than likely he did not like this man.
Right. For very clear reasons. Yeah. And what I noted, that's true. In fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Castor had I guess it was the mistress of O'Neill, of the person he was having an affair with, sit next to O'Neill's wife
at the
during
debate.
the debate. Yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
So,
and speaking of O'Neill's wife, that's messed up. But speaking of O'Neill's wife, she's actually a sexual assault counselor. Tom Messerone and Kathleen Bliss, who were the attorneys in the second trial, and I know both of them. I know Tom more than Kathleen. He stated that they tried to get the judge to recuse himself based off of this because it was alleged that this wife was receiving donations from the groups that were protesting Cosby. He refused to step down. So a lot of this is happening. We got our other guest, Al. I got to bring him on. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome attorney Andrew P. Jones. He's been sitting there patiently. He's up in New York too, Shawn, with you.
Okay.
Andrew. I think you got problems with your mic. Can you turn your volume up? Now you're muted.
Okay. Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Guys, I just wanted to add on that last point. Good afternoon, gentlemen, or good evening, gentlemen. Very prominent attorney. I was actually reading the opinion earlier. I didn't get to finish. It's kind of long. They really go into the facts, over 40 plus pages of facts on the opinion. For a 79-page opinion. It's pretty amazing. And they go into it in excruciating detail. But Bill Cosby had a prominent attorney in Pennsylvania at the time who had a really good relationship with Castor, and he's a well-known in the defense bar by the prosecutor. And I think he had such a strong reputation with them that he gave the prosecutor a lot of leeway given his reputation. This is a buddy system. Furthermore, I remember reading a couple of years ago. I don't know legally if that's how it was. Cosby's team wanted not to go on the record because they were trying to protect his reputation. Remember the Cosby Show, I think, was on when was at the time. So they wanted to spare his reputation as best as possible.
No, the Cosby Show was off when Andrea Constand accused him. I think what was going on, he probably had Little Bill, I think, on Nickelodeon, or just his comedy career. But I mean, yeah, but the Cosby Show was off at that time.
Something he was still prominent at the time, so they were still trying to spare his record. I just recall reading that a number of years ago. So I just threw that out there because the lack of formality of not getting the agreement on the record was a strange move, and it didn't help that his lawyer died. So who could say, this is why I did X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Well, see, that's why I noted that it was odd. I thought it was very odd that there wasn't some sort of obvious confirmation that would be clear and that wasn't fungible or flexible enough for a future DA to go, you know what, this doesn't work for us. We're gonna invalidate this, and we're just gonna go ahead and prosecute.
Love to finish reading the opinion, because the big thing I think the court it probably turned on once he gave up his Fifth Amendment right and then was deposed, came over no matter what. The man waived his rights. Monies was exchanged as a result of the deposition and settlement.
Right.
And the court's like, yo, you can't do that. You know.
Right. Well, that's one of the keys to this case was the fact of that deposition, which I believe, as part of the civil trial, which I believe was sealed, if I'm not mistaken.
It was sealed.
And
The judge, right. Well, the judge in the civil trial was a federal judge named Eduardo Roberno, who was appointed by George H.W. Bush in 1992. Roberno, of course, the reason why it was filed in federal court, people may be asking, is that there's something called diversity jurisdiction. Andrea Constant is from Canada. And if you are filing suit in federal court, you have to allege that your damages were over $75,000 and that you for diversity jurisdiction, and that you're, you live in different states, or if you're an illegal alien, or you're an alien, well, I should say illegal alien, but if you're foreigner of some sort, you file it in federal court. So that's why that happened. But he signed off on the settlement. She was paid $3.8 million, almost $4 million. She accepted it. She signed a non-disclosure agreement. The judge signed off and accepted it. The testimony of the prior 5 bad act witnesses, we're going to get to that too, because the court didn't express interest in the prior bad acts because they stated it was proved from the beginning if this prosecutorial agreement stood, then we don't even need to discuss further the prior bad acts. But I think for everybody here, we're going to talk about them, because when you dissect and listen to these stories, a lot of what they are saying is highly questionable. And I have done analysis on it. Brother Drew Story News has done analysis on it. He actually, after some of the women, I know for a fact have been exposed for lying. Chloe Goins is one who was actually said that Bill Cosby molested her at the Playboy Mansion, but we have records that show that not only Cosby was not at the Playboy Mansion at the time, he was in New York undergoing eye treatment. So all of that could be verified. Even with this case, supposedly it was filed outside the statute of limitations. But Andrew, I want to get your opinion. I want to know where you were when you read when you found out about the statement exactly, because I asked Al and I asked Shawn where they were. Yeah, when the verdict, when the Supreme Court overturned his conviction.
In my office, and the news flashes come on my computer constantly. So as soon as they came down, I mean, they don't care what you're doing, it just comes down in droves. I was getting 10, 20 hits on emails saying that there was a current ruling, and it was coming down heavy. But I just want to go back real quickly. The court was probably right not to get to the bad character witnesses, because what they're saying is that once you have this agreement, there should have been no trial, and therefore we don't need to address this bad character witness, because there should have never been a trial. So there's no point of even saying that we're gonna address whether or not these people should have testified at the trial, because there should have been no trial. That's why he got out so quickly on the ruling. I mean, to me, if you're a criminal prosecutor, that's such a devastating destruction of your case.
Yes.
Because and for civil purposes, this is even worse. This is the worst case scenario for Montgomery County and the state of Pennsylvania from a civil standpoint, because they actually did. I didn't think they were going to go this far, because it exposes the county and state to tremendous liability.
This is when Bill Cosby was actually arrived at his home, courtesy of TMZ. That's Andrew Wyatt. And I'm going to talk about something too, because you mentioned devastation to the case, and I'm going to keep you on, and then I'm going to get to Shawn. They also, there is certainly civil liability that's going to arise from this whole thing. I know you were on, Al, with Judge Joe, and I have noted, and I'll just say this, I believe I know in the law there is something called malicious prosecution. That is a civil tort remedy that can be brought up, and I'll share with everybody what the law that is. And just to be clear, for legal purposes, legal advice that I give out on my expertise does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. It's just my opinion based off what I know. But that's Bill Cosby leaving out. And even on TMZ, they talk about this, that Bill Cosby is exploring legal options, could sue over his trial, and a potential lawsuit against Montgomery County will be the hot topic. Sources close to Cosby tell TMZ the comedian and his wife are angry. He's been incarcerated for the last 3 years. And they're exploring his options for legal recourse, including potentially suing the county in Pennsylvania where he was tried. We're told Cosby and his lawyers are looking into a possible lawsuit for abuse of process, and that's just one of several potential options they're discussing. Legally speaking, abuse of process refers to the improper use of a civil or criminal legal process for an unattended, malicious, or perverse reason. In other words, it means Cosby could argue the prosecutor deliberately misused the criminal justice process to prosecute him, despite the fact it meant breaking a promise to Cosby from the previous district attorney. That DA, of course, is Kevin Steele currently. The prior DA who made the agreement was Bruce Castor. There was another lady who came in after Castor. She never brought this to custody. This trial. I can't remember her name, so I apologize if I forget her name.
Her name was Fern something.
Actually, it's in the opinion. I could probably find it.
It's the opinion, but I was reading it earlier. Her attorney Furman. Here he goes.
Furman.
Hold on. I'm actually. I'm smooth. Her name is Reza Vetri Furman.
Not Mark Furman's sister. Lisa Vetri Furman. Okay. She succeeded Castor as the DA. So it was 3.38 million, but still 3.4, 3.8, close enough. And who's counting? And then, so Bill Cosby, Shawn, I'm going to start with you, then I'm going to get to Andrew. Do you think he should, well, I'm not going to ask you if you think he should sue. I'm going to ask you how much you think he's going to get.
Well, I believe he's going to get a sizable sum. I mean, the punitive damages are going to be quite high in this case because Mr. Cosby can easily prove that this prosecution was malicious based on Kevin Steele's own political campaign. That political campaign where he singled out Bill Cosby right there is right there a case for a civil case for malicious prosecution because a prosecutor is supposed to represent the state's interests and the prosecutor is supposed to remain objective as they present the facts as related to a suspect's trial. They are only supposed to present arguments as related to the suspect's alleged behavior.
My reaction to the ruling is,
and they're not supposed to come in and bring their personal biases into a trial. And your Kevin Steele clearly brought his own personal biases into this whole Bill Cosby case because he was approaching it from an emotional perspective and not an objective one. And that can, again, clearly be shown in all of the way he approached this case. And when people look at the facts as related to his actions, they can see that from his campaign. So he's already going to have to deal with a lawsuit, not only with the state dealing with that lawsuit, but he may also have to deal with a personal civil suit as well. So Bill Cosby will be suing, and I think that he will be getting a sizable settlement from the state and may possibly have a judgment made against the prosecutor himself for going out here and going and trying this case.
Let me pull this up.
If I will,
Andrew, hold your thought. I want to show to what Shawn is talking about. Everybody needs to see this video right here that I'm going to share because this is what Shawn is talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Please hold your thought for a second, Andrew, because this is what we're talking about. This is an article from This is Laura, Marion, and Norbert, and they said DA Kevin Steele's whole campaign was based on locking up Bill Cosby. So look at this ad.
For District Attorney in Montgomery County, Kevin Steele, first assistant DA with a 98% conviction rate and tough sentences for sexual predators. Or Bruce Castor, a former DA who refused to prosecute Bill Cosby. Castor said, "We don't charge people for making a mistake or doing something foolish." Many more victims came forward, and Castor admitted he could have used their testimony against Cosby. But Castor didn't even try. Bruce Castor was not looking out for the victims.
This was one of the ads that he used to get Bill Cosby. Now, how do you think this looks for a jury pool? When you put ads like this out, when they keep seeing this over and over again.
It looks like condemning evidence right there in a civil trial, where the preponderance of the evidence is far less.
Andrew.
Well, here's what.
Wait, Al, let Andrew, because I stopped Andrew. Let Andrew go, and then I'll let you go, Al.
The caption says the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Bill Cosby. So when you talk about who Bill Cosby is going to sue, he's going to sue the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I don't, New York, I'm a New York attorney, so the law might be different in Pennsylvania, which I doubt, but you cannot sue the prosecutor individually or personally. They usually have immunity from these actions. So I doubt if they'll be suing them personally. As to the county, I doubt it also, because the county, the prosecutions are done by state. You go to state prison when you are convicted. So I doubt he'll be able to sue the county. So Pennsylvania, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is going to be the defendant in the civil lawsuit. He might name some other people as parties, but they will not be personally liable, I don't believe. Again, because the caption is the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Bill Cosby, which is standard in all criminal prosecutions around the country. It's always a state bringing a case against you, unless you're in federal court, where it's the U.S. government. So, yeah. So the damages. The reason why Bill Cosby's case is going to be huge, because he's a very successful actor and businessman, he will be able to have documented economic damages that he can actually point to and say, I lost this contract, that contract, this money from here, and this money from here, which adds into hundreds of millions of dollars. So his true economic damages, unlike in most cases, in civil cases, you get a lot of punitive damages, which in his case is going to be substantial. But his real economic damages by itself, documented, is enormous. It's not speculative, it is enormous. So his damages is going to be 9 figures and up.
Right. Well, let me say this, and I'll let Al speak. While there is prosecutorial and judicial immunity, prosecutorial immunity and judicial immunity, there have been, under civil rights acts, for instance, the Harris versus Harvey case, which is a federal case. If you did intentional acts, a judge that did acts on another party, based off racial animosity and prejudice, they were able to sue this judge, and he could not claim judicial immunity or prosecutorial immunity. Although it might be a little harder with this one, because I don't have any proof that Stephen O'Neill, although I may believe it, or Kevin Steele, that they acted outside of their scopes and duties based off racial animosity. Personally, I think it was, it had something to do with it, but I also think they were just assholes too. I think one was trying to make a career for himself, and he can certainly sue that county for this, because, and I think he could get his money back too from the fine that he had to pay. I don't know.
He'll be getting all that back. No, his record is so clean from this. That'll be an easy demand to get that money back if he paid it. I do recall they were going to plan to hit him with I think it was $40,000 if I recall. But that's peanuts compared to what he's really going to go after.
Right.
His state claim against the state. They might want to go to federal court for civil rights violations because he wasn't incarcerated improperly. So, but the state is on the hook for a huge amount of money. Huge.
I wish I was an attorney in Pennsylvania because I could make a career just off of. I could retire off of this just one case, Andrew. We could retire.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's got quite a few lawsuits. And I just throw this in. People want him to go after Constant. Lawyers are going to have to be objective about it and practice really good law. How much you want to go after Constant is going to be really you have to be very careful. Yeah, there's a real huge political problem in going after her. She's almost like judgment proof because she has no real money or resources. I do think the writing of the book, being that he had a settlement agreement with her, not to disparage him and not to disclose it, I'm pretty sure he's going to ask for an injunction on the book. I think it would be a little legitimate, and even her civil lawyers, they might be looking for cover.
Yeah, well, her lawyer Dolores Triani, yeah, she's gonna get this. Al, you were trying to make a point earlier. I was gonna let you go ahead and speak, and then I'll let Shawn.
Several points. The first point is it's pretty clear after the trial that more than likely Montgomery County, which is the county in which the trial took place, will probably be sued. I would be surprised if it wasn't by Cosby, and probably the state of Pennsylvania as well. I think a very good point was noted here. That is the amount of loss that in terms of damages. But I'm not an attorney, but my assessment would be you would have to, I assume, in regards to damages, deal with the contracts that were lost in regards or tied to the prosecution, or as a result of the prosecution. So it'd have to be a link. Anything before that, I don't think would be liable, but anything afterwards. Whatever the deal, I know he had a deal at Netflix. I know
he had a special that was going to air on Netflix. It had already been recorded.
Because before the prosecution happened, I think he was on one point. Yeah, and he also had other financial deals. So that would, I assume that he has his legal team already, or at least a lawyer already working on that.
He had
and more than likely, I'm assuming
he had a
more than likely. Right. I know that I know that he was planning to do a TV show.
Right. NBC had, well, what happened was this. NBC, he had a deal with NBC to come back to do a show as a grandfather. Right. And Carroll, correct me if I'm wrong, Shawn, was
he did have a deal with NBC for a show that wound up getting canceled.
Right. And well, they stopped it before it could start because of the accusations. Although I think Hannibal Buress was just the shill. Hannibal Buress, honestly, you haven't heard much from him since that. Since all of this stuff started and ended, he has been absent.
Why would you hear from Hannibal Buress? Hannibal Buress just noted what he had heard. He just noted what he heard.
No, but we're talking about
he's really Hannibal Buress. Here's the thing you got to keep in mind. Here's the thing you got to keep in mind about Hannibal Buress. Hannibal Buress is just stating what was in the air in terms of Hollywood regarding Bill Cosby. So all he did was state it. All he did was note it on stage. The only importance of that was that people, individual of women came out of the woodwork. Ladies came out of the woodwork and said, I was assaulted, or I was dogged, or this happened to me. And that's when the claims started, the accusations started.
I mentioned
in regard to the amount of accusations and the amount of individuals, some of whom became obviously bad act witnesses.
Right.
But
I
that was the only role for Hannibal Buress.
Right. But the point I'm mentioning about Hannibal Buress and why I bring that up is that they used him as the guy, what he's being held as the guy who brought down Bill Cosby based off that joke. And my understanding too, he was just basically I don't want to say the word is not patsy, but he was the one that they used to do that, because it's typical when you see these accusations come out, when you see someone, they go and find a person, especially if you look at the race of that person, try and make it look like it's not a racial issue to bring out and say things, because you never heard of Hannibal Buress before that. You only saw, he's from Chicago, that recording that he had, that person only I found very interesting. He only recorded and released that 5 minutes or 7 minutes of his set, not the entire set of Hannibal Buress. It was just that he recorded that alone. So he had to have been the guy who recorded it hell of a lucky to go and record something like that and actually know when the set was coming on. Because
people record comedians all the time.
Well, they do, but they don't. But here's the thing: I don't know what a comedian actually want to say.
Comedians when they perform,
I don't know the set though, Al. Like as a comedian myself, my set may change. How did you? That's the point I'm making. How did he know that?
Right.
That's the point I mean. Unless he recorded
how did
more.
Who know that?
The person recording it. How did he know when to record? How did he know he was going to talk about
that part? We obviously have to talk to him, to that person. But the point that I would make about Hannibal, the only part I make about Hannibal Buress is his importance was only insofar as was really part of a joke about Bill Cosby, which again was scuttlebutt in Hollywood for years. And then the only importance is that initiated, the claims came, that went public, and people started going, oh, that's when the claims came out and the accusations. Now, getting back to the other portions other points I wanted to make. So yeah, I think I would agree that Cosby I would be surprised if he didn't sue, not only the county, but also the state, Montgomery County, but also the state of Pennsylvania.
Al, you're kind of breaking in and out.
Now, in regards to the prosecutor, Steele, Cosby himself, but the lack of pain issue. Oh, hello.
I can hear you, but it's in and out. Is anybody else hearing the same?
I'm not having any problems.
You're not? Okay. All right. We'll try it again, Al.
Yeah. What? Like I said, it's not so much that Steele used Cosby as a campaign issue. He used the lack of prosecution against Cosby and the deal as a campaign issue. And that's the important part, because that goes at the heart of this situation. The weird part about this case, to me, I'm a layman, but the weird part about this case is you have a civil suit. Andrea Constance filed a civil suit. So she wasn't initially, she may have thought about trying to prosecute criminally, but she filed a civil proceeding. As the attorneys here well know, very different from a criminal trial. And she got a settlement. And so we begin from that aspect. We begin with that aspect. And so like I said, the weird part about this to me, or maybe not so weird, is one, you had an agreement with the prosecutor. I think the other part was that you had the deposition I guess, for the civil case that Bill Cosby made, and that was the sealed that was ended up being sealed. And I think ultimately that was detrimental to Bill Cosby. The way I view it, I view this ultimately the whole agreement not to the agreement that Castor had with Cosby and his lawyers, whole civil case, ultimately detrimental for Cosby. Because what it did is it provided a once it was Stephen T. O'Neill, the judge, decided that the documents could be unsealed. I believe the kind of I call it. Are you familiar with the game Jenga? Have you heard that game?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This case is kind of like Jenga, where you pile one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. So you have one decision after another, after another, after another. And the problem is they were bad in the case of the trial, really pretty awful decisions. Certainly awful for Cosby. But I also think that in the end, it was a lot of negative, detrimental decisions that ended up leading to his conviction. Because once those statements were unsealed, they could then be used against him. Then you have the aspect of the bad act witnesses. And then we're talking, of course, about the second trial.
Series of events that
which is the one Stephen T. O'Neill had presided over, is that these are all accusers. These are all accusers of Cosby. They're not people who have had cases adjudicated in courts. They're not people that have had anything on the record in regards to not so much a conviction, but any kind of proceeding or any kind of judgment. So all you have are people that are basically, and again, I'm not an attorney, I'm a layman, so I'm just viewing this from the best foot forward as a layman. But they were essentially, because it's bad act witness, they were essentially character witnesses. But they were character witnesses in destroying the character of Bill Cosby, not in promoting the character of Bill Cosby. So in essence, they were, I would call it anti-character witnesses. That's just the way I put it. So you had 5 bad act witnesses there, 5. So when you have 5 women, and we already know that there have been, I don't know how many, there have been a number of accusers, certainly more than 20 and in excess of 30 that had occurred before the second trial. We know that there was a lot of attention in the media because it got a lot of media attention, and that some of these accusers were interviewed by CNN and the networks like NBC, BBC, CBS. So you have not only the background, the foundation of all this media attention, and it's known there are all these accusers. When the trial happens, you have these 5 bad act witnesses. Now, again, go back to my example of Jenga. So they're part of the strategy against Bill Cosby. Witness by witness by witness saying he drugged me, he raped me, or he drugged me, he assaulted me, he did this. And so when you have, I mean, even if they weren't 5 altogether, because I haven't seen the trial transcripts, so I can't say when they prosecuted in what order. But when you have 5 witnesses attesting to that in a trial, that's a significant number. If it's 1 bad act witness, then maybe you could fudge that. I'm sure as an attorney, you could deal probably with that. But if you got 5, now you've got to be able to come up with, the typical background. You got to have knowledge of what these people are, what their foundations are, whether we're in it for money, whether they are telling the truth, is the story credible? You've got to do that. Plus, you're looking at an era now with the Me Too movement, and where sexual assault and sexual harassment are taken extremely seriously, as they should be. And so when you combine all this together, plus these witnesses, it's not a surprise that Cosby was convicted, because you have these witnesses saying, this is what he did to us, or this is what he did to me, over and over and over and over again. And 5 of them is a lot. I mean, it's a good amount. And when you combine that, like I said, with what's already happened, plus the fact you have to understand that you take his documentation, his sealed record, and you unseal it and use it against Cosby. I mean, it's no surprise that he was convicted, because the jury's going to go back to that room and go, they're going to have enough to doubt the credibility of Cosby. They're going to have enough to go, well, this guy isn't what he seemed on TV, in the movies, putting that all aside, but this guy isn't what he seemed. You know, I think what the judge said was part of the reason that certain things were allowed. I think even the, the sealed statement was allowed, was of Cosby's position as a moralist.
Right, that was Judge Roberno.
Moralist. So what he's
holiday.
doing is, what that says is, basically you're saying this is countering the narrative of his sort of character, which is sort of chastising people within his community. I don't know if they wanted to go that far, but moralist, I think that's what they're alluding to.
Right.
So
well,
that's countering that.
Right. Well, let me
The statement and the bad act witnesses counter his place and his image. So it's image decimation.
But it's important to know these. Yeah, it's important to note something too, though, about the prior bad act witnesses. Number one, a large number of them, the women who come forward, are represented by Gloria Allred, who's made a press statement back in September 2014. Had a statement stating that any woman comes forward, and some of these women, including a couple who testified, came forward, and only after Gloria Allred was demanding $100 million in money from Bill Cosby. So that's important to note. It's also important to note that at the first trial, the judge only allowed one prior bad act witness who had changed her story. In the second trial, he allowed 19 prior. It was going to allow them to pull the pick from 19, and he picked those 5 without giving any reasons to the defense or even the prosecution why he was allowing those 5, and including one of those was also Janice Dickinson. I got to move on though, because I want to show something, and I want you to take a look at this. But this is for everybody, because we talk about bias in reporting and meeting in the media. This is CNN. So I'm doing an analysis of it though, but this is Jennifer Bongine. Bongine is the attorney. She's the appeals attorney in this case
Taking that
for
illegal.
Bill Cosby. So I'm going to rewind what she says, and I'm going to break down some stuff.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
And you're going to see the nonsense that CNN and Chris Cuomo was doing, because they were having a fit all day yesterday when this verdict was read.
Clear. You don't take exception to anything I said introducing this segment, right? I mean, he wasn't found innocent. He wasn't exonerated. This was a procedural issue.
Okay,
that the trial should have
I got to
never
stop right there. This is incorrect, what Chris Cuomo is saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please. It's just ridiculous.
Wait, let me explain it. I'll explain it to everybody why this is incorrect. 6th Amendment of the Constitution states.
Thank you. Go ahead, brother.
I want you to read. I'm going to stop the screen for a second, and I want you all to read the 6th Amendment of the Constitution. This is what it says here, up at the top of your screen. Shawn, why don't you read it for me?
Well, the screen is a little small, but I'll go over to my own screen in 6 minutes.
All right, well, it's okay. We got time issues, but it's all right. But In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district should have been previously ascertained by law and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor. In other words, to have a process to bring in people who can vouch for you under oath, as long as it's not perjured, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. And within the Sixth Amendment, wrong amendment, there is something called, that's flowed from this, called the presumption of innocence. And all people, whether you're accused of petty theft, even if you're accused of child molestation, which is tragic, of course, we don't like hearing that, but even if you're accused of murder, or even if you're accused of terrorism, you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Doesn't matter how many accusations you have. You could have 60 accusers. You could have 100 accusers. You could have one. An accusation by itself does not mean that the charges are necessarily true. It is not the job of the defense to prove his innocence. It is the job of the prosecutor to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That has been the standard, and the Supreme Court said that in a case called Coffin versus the United States. That was the reason why due process and presumption was created, why we have those amendments. There are rules to be followed. So what the court did, and why I'm exposing Chris Cuomo is a former prosecutor. He knows better, but he's working for CNN, so he's a talking piece. And when you're talking about, well, they didn't find him innocent or guilty. No, by law, because they overturned that conviction, his status is restored as it was prior. Remember what I read earlier. It means that he is now innocent until proven guilty. But you can't bring the case back because it's tainted. So he is restored to his former status. That is why his case was overturned. Had he accepted being paroled, as O.J. Simpson was arguing, saying that he should have just taken it, then he would have been admitting guilt.
That idiot Lamont, whatever his name is.
Moise Lamont Still. We're going to talk about those people, him and Janet Hubert, in a little bit. But we got to go back to Chris. But this is the lies, and I'm glad I have Al on, because this is what mainstream media does. They half-ass the whole thing, and you're going to hear how he half-assed it, and I'm going to break it down why it's half-assed. We're going whole-ass tonight. Hold on. Y'all stay with me.
Fair point.
I do take issue with one point, is that this was a prosecution on one person's claim, one person's allegation. This wasn't an indictment involving 5 women, 60 women, whatever the number is. This was.
By the way, Chris has nothing to say about his brother who's accused of sexual misconduct either.
One woman's claim that was prosecuted. So I think that needs to be made clear. And also, I would point out that these are, constitutional safeguards. This isn't just a matter of technicalities, or we are talking about major constitutional principles on which our criminal justice system rests. And that's why the remedy was a strong one. So apart from that, I agree that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court wasn't speaking to the guilt or innocence as to Ms. Constance's claims, but it was a single person's claims that were brought in that trial.
I'll deal with that in 1 second. But in terms of the procedural issue, take us back. Obviously, you knew this was an opportunity when you were heading into the retrial, and that this criminal prosecution was taking place after one wasn't supposed to happen at all. Was that argued at the time, and why was the prosecution allowed to go forward at the time?
Oh, sure, it was argued. Only the media wasn't reporting on it. Nobody was interested in hearing that there had been an agreement, and a lot of this energy, this angry energy, should really be directed at the prosecutors, because this is a case about prosecutorial misconduct. You may take issue with Mr. Castro for having made the agreement in the first place, and you should also take issue with the prosecutors who refused to honor that agreement. So that is what the story is here. But yes, it was raised. It was raised before the first trial. It was litigated, and Mr. Cosby and his team vigorously fought that and stated he should never have been prosecuted on account of this agreement.
You say you want to be clear that this is just about Andrea Constant. Fair point. No, fair point.
It's not a fair point. It is about Andrea Constant. She's the only woman. No one else pressed charges. No one else's case went to trial. Bill Cosby has never been indicted on anything else other than Andrea Constant. And Chris Cuomo knows this. By the way,
all the other cases are beyond the statute of limitations and can never be brought against them.
Right. By the way, I have to, before I get hit with a copyright claim, because CNN will do it, this is Fair Use Act 1976. I'm sharing this only for criticism and news purposes only. But let's continue.
Well, it happens to be just true.
We got to move on.
But I don't know that it's the best fact. You know, when people think about the Cosby story, they think back to that New Yorker cover with all those women. And what was so, frightening about their stories was how similar they were, even though they didn't know each other. And it raises the question, to your own point, you're right, it was only one woman. And do you expect that they should bring at least another case with all these other alleged victims?
Well, all of the alleged victims had every opportunity to press their claims at the time that the statute of limitations allowed them to do so. For various reasons, they chose not to, and I'm not here to judge why they may have chosen not to. But we still have a system of laws and rules and a constitution that requires us to play by the rules. And you can't cheat to get a conviction just because we now have a movement that wants to make a platform inside the courtroom for women who chose not to press their claims or didn't press their claims for some reason or another. That's fine on social media, that's fine in newspapers, but in the courtroom, we have to still follow the rules, and we can't make it a platform just about women coming forward who didn't at the time when it would have been possible to prosecute those claims.
What Jennifer Bongine is saying, Ms. Bongine is saying, is that we can't support lynch mobs. Putting it in a mild way.
This is why I noted
Chris Cuomo is a disgrace.
This is why I noted the bad act witnesses were used as a major foundation in this case, but they were troubling when you think about it, because there were no legal claims. They were all accusers. There were no legal foundation. There were no past cases. There were no cases on the record. They didn't file claims against Cosby in terms of pressing charges or holding him to account. And as the attorney here, they had possibly doing the ability. She knows they had that. And that's witnesses come up, they're outside character witnesses, because what they say is, he did X, Y to me, but there's no record foundation in terms of past cases, no foundation, and there's accusations. So you're having accusers come and say that this, that's why witnesses are important in, I believe, in the conviction of Cosby, because they provided a foundation for doubt on the part of a jury, because they could doubt on the part of Cosby, doubt on the part of his character, especially, and doubt on the part of whether he could have been capable, whether he actually did it, actions, and that's why it's important. Another thing I wanted to stress here, it's interesting. Cuomo stated New Yorker cover. All those were on the New Yorker cover. I mean, this is a nitpicky point, but you just saw what the magazine was. It was New York magazine, not New Yorker magazine. I mean, you know, that's kind of a minor mistake there, but, you know, I mean, he had it on his show. I mean, he stated New Yorker cover. You mean New York magazine cover. Little bit of accuracy there. But
they're gonna
see,
bring
that's
it up.
important in regards to the case. It's a weird case. That's why I say this whole Cosby case is a weird case, because you had a civil agreement. You had a civil case and agreement, sealed documents. Constant had filed civilly, not criminally. That's very important.
Right, Alan, we gotta go forward.
She can bring a criminal charge. Only prosecutor can bring a criminal charge. And
Right.
as to the cover, the mistake everybody makes about the cover is that it's more flash than fluff. It's not evidence of a crime. It's just it was a staged photograph to hurt Cosby, but there was not a shred of evidence that any of the ladies said it happened. And that's the whole problem with the cover. You know, you can put 1,000 women on there. It is not proof that there was a crime written against any of the ladies. None of them called the police to report it. Not one. That's almost statistically impossible.
Right.
Well, that's why I noted the atmosphere in which this was conducted. The atmosphere in terms of magazine covers like the New York one, in terms of CNN and all the other TV media, interviewing accusers, doing news segments on this, and articles coming out. You have to look at the atmosphere in terms of what had come out in the news, what people were reading and digesting. That was very important and is very important in looking at this case. So when Chris Cuomo puts that cover up there, that's attesting to the atmosphere surrounding the Cosby case, not just the court case, but the overall case.
All right, we got to continue. I want to play more.
Said on my paper, New Yorker. It was New York magazine. That's it's good to be accurate, but it's insignificant. The real point is this: what does it mean to you now that Bill Cosby, he did do a few years in prison, but that with all these women and all these allegations, and again, I don't have to tell you, these were not hand on the knee. These were not verbal suggestions. This was a pattern that he acknowledged in that civil trial of, well, you're going to take exception with the word pattern, but he acknowledged.
She should have stopped him right there. But
when you got Quaaludes, was it in your mind that you were going to use these Quaaludes for young women that you wanted to have sex with? That's multiple women. That's behavior. That's a pattern.
Okay.
He said, yes. Does it bother you at all?
Okay. Now, I stopped it right there. This is the most important aspect you guys are going to have to focus on. I said earlier, CNN does this half-assed approach when it deals with the news, because when they talk about stuff like this, they mention one aspect of the deposition. You notice it says 2005, 2006 deposition. The deposition was done on several dates. That's one thing. So Bill Cosby was asked this particular question multiple times. A lot of people don't know this because you're relying on CNN or MSNBC, who are going to give you a slanted interpretation. I'm sorry, Shawn was muted. I'm sorry. A slanted interpretation of the news, of what really happened. And I want you to look at this. I'm going to stop the screen in a second. I told you, I'm going to give you the whole ass. Because what was released in that deposition, they only released Dolores Troiani's, what was called plaintiffs, and Andrew knows this because he's seen it, plaintiff's motions for sanctions against the defending counsel for interrupting the deposition. You, in a legal aspect, if you have a lawyer that makes continuous objections that have no merit or standing, and they're doing it just to hinder the purpose of the depo, they can ask for sanctions. And the opponent, of course, can respond. The defense counsel can respond in opposing those sanctions. Of course, you can respond. It's a typical lawsuit. I respond. You file a lawsuit. Defense gets the opportunity to respond. That's how it happens. This is what Chris Cuomo leaves out. This is what MSNBC leaves out. This is what Moist Lamont Spill leaves out. This is it here, ladies and gentlemen. March 28, 2006, William H. Cosby. Have sex. I don't have the full page up, but he's talking about that question. But you can look at the whole deposition in its entirety. He says, I actually have it, and if I get the link, I'll post it on here later. I know I bookmarked it, but I pulled this up since I was in a hurry. He says, have sex, referring to Quaaludes. You answered yes. Did you ever give any of these young women the Quaaludes without their knowledge? And that was the follow-up question to that particular depot. Somebody's got the police and fire trucks coming out there. We lost Andrew. But he states,
law and order.
That's the question that you've been directed to answer. Cosby replies, what, Shawn?
No.
He says no. Are you a witness to that, Shawn?
Yes, I am.
Al, do you see it?
I'm watching it on my phone, so I see very tiny. It's very tiny.
Okay.
On my device.
Well,
but the point that you're making is that he was asked a follow-up question, because you see one question that was shown on CNN about whether he had used was it Quaaludes and other kinds of drugs. And so this question is another question, if I'm not mistaken.
This is a follow-up question because she asked, asked multiple questions.
Right.
That was, like I said, it took place over a year. It was multiple dates that Bill Cosby appeared. So it wasn't just one-time depot. And when he asked, she asked the same question before. His lawyer originally objected because there was an order by the judge as to what exactly they would refer to. And even in that depot, Bill Cosby was asked her, are you talking about the 70s? Because in the 70s, Quaaludes were party drugs. You took those to get in the mood. They were disco biscuits. He had a prescription for that because he had a elbow injury. The woman who he was referring to, her name was Teresa Signis. Oh, I'm going in on it because I did my research. She was a nursing student, and she admitted to voluntarily taking the pill. And then it also comes out, I'm giving y'all some facts. You can go on People and read her story because she states, I was the Jane Doe they mentioned. She stated that even afterwards, she received money from Bill Cosby. He paid for her tuition. She asked for money again in the 90s when she had a car accident. I'm hollering and I'm upset because the information is out there, people. Y'all can read.
Now, it's interesting. It's interesting. Now, here's what's another interesting thing about the CNN piece we saw not long ago. I highlighted a seemingly minor point, which is that the magazine piece they put up was New York with the accused. Not accused, but the accusers of Bill Cosby was New York and not New Yorker, as he noted. And Cuomo corrected himself, and he said, "Oh, that's insignificant." Well, I'm not saying it's all important, nor is it very important or even modestly important, but it is a detail, and it goes to accuracy. And he's trying to shrug it off. Well, in a case like this, but most other, this report on what happened occurred in the Washingtonian magazine, as opposed to the Washington Post. If you say Washington Post, you're referring to a newspaper. If you say Washingtonian, you're referring to a magazine. So it's different. yeah, both publications, but different. That goes to accuracy. And I say that because Cuomo is somebody who was actually caught sort of fudging facts relating to his getting the coronavirus. He had shot, I think, B-roll at his home, coming out of his, I guess, pandemic bunker or wherever he was doing his reports. But this was untrue. He had actually got into a scrape with somebody or got into an argument with somebody when he was out riding a bike.
Somebody called him Fredo.
When he was outside, walking to accuracy and credibility. Cuomo has been caught fudging the facts. So I know this is a small point. Like I said, he made a small mistake and a error there, but it doesn't surprise me in light of his credibility. And another prosecution. I mean, she made a very good point, and it gets to a point which I probably will put on or note later in regards to the sort of what appears to be the stance being taken right now in regards to Cosby. But just note that I note all that because I hadn't seen this segment that you just showed, but I'm looking at that. I'm going, yeah, he gets the magazine wrong, and then he tries to dismiss it. Interesting. But then again, Cuomo is a prosecutor. He's not really a trained journalist, from my understanding. I mean, he's got his own news show, quote unquote, but he's not really a reporter by training. He's an attorney. Not that there aren't attorneys who become journalists. Glenn Greenwald is one. So is well, I'll just say Glenn Greenwald. He's clearly an attorney. But in this case, I mean, when I looked at this, it's pretty clear. Like I said, I look at what Cuomo's saying. I'm like, the guy has issues with credibility.
Yeah. Well, he has issues with credibility. Right. Let's go back. But Andrew, you see this state, and this is the point I'm making, that because Andrew came in, that they don't answer the whole follow-up question. And so let me also share, when I talked about Jane Doe, I'm going to go back and play in the video, but this is Teresa's niece, and this is what I'm saying. You guys, I verified it. This is the woman who says that that Cosby allegedly drugged and assaulted her when she was 19 out at the Las Vegas Hilton in 1976. Bill Cosby was about 39 years old when this allegedly happened, and he asked her to marry her playfully when he saw her looking outside of a gift shop. Now, she says that he approached her, gave her a free ticket to his show. She got escorted backstage to the green room. She remembers feeling that she was meant to stay as the 10 or so other people there made their goodbyes. Along with the entertainer, she claims he approached her on a couch, held out his hand, and he had 2 pills there and a glass of water, and he told me to take them. The pills, she says, was Quaaludes. He identified what they were. That's how I knew. So she knew what they were. At that point, I didn't know what to do, so I just obeyed, and I just did it. My next memory is I felt high. I don't remember what happened in the meantime. Then my next memory is being in that vanity room by that big mirror. And he didn't have any clothes on, and obviously I didn't either by that point. I don't know how they got off. I don't have the memory. They were, she says, in the midst of intercourse. I was just like bent over, and he was saying all kinds of dirty stuff. I felt powerless. I didn't know what to do, and the drugs certainly enhanced that. That's why I remember having sex with him, not wanting to be there, not knowing how to get out of there. Now, Sarah's niece is twice divorced single mother of 2 children, ages 20 and 33. She says she was Jane Doe number 10, providing a supporting deposition in a 26 civil suit against Cosby and brought by another woman over an alleged incident 2 years earlier. The suit was later settled out of court. He was talking about Constant. As allegations brought to light during the case have resurfaced, Cosby's attorney, John P. Smith, has said Cosby will not address the decade-old discredited claims, but their resurgent moved Sarah needs to ask for the apology she never received and to regret that the earlier settlement briefly still voices such as hers. I was disappointed, I guess, because it was a chance to tell your story. There was going to be 13 of us coming to testify. Of course, it wouldn't play out. It was Bill Cosby. He still had a lot of power. So this all-powerful Negro that had all this power and was able to rape all these white women, most of them were white, over a 50-year period. The oldest accusation goes back to 1965. That was before Loving versus Virginia, when they made interracial marriages legal across the country. And it was taboo for a black man and white woman to be together. Now, I want to read further because this is the important part. And now, years later, I think that people want him to acknowledge that he harmed women, he took sexual advantage of them, that he did do these wrongs to people. As I go over further, she says, but listen to what she says. She admits she continued to see Cosby after her initial encounter and later asked him for money. She was encouraged by her mother, now deceased, to call the star, which led to more show tickets and invitations to stay overnight in his hotel penthouse. Now, I believe she even told her mother what happened. I don't see it in here, but her mother even said, well, her response was, well, maybe you could get something. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially, she didn't want her to go to the police or say anything to the press. She didn't want to kill Bill Cosby after he allegedly assaulted her. But she said she continued to see him and ask for money. She was encouraged by her mother to call a star. So the mother, if she told the mother what really happened, damn, the mother wasn't upset. She says she can't recall how many sexual encounters followed. So it was more than once. There were dinners with Cosby and others, and she claims he gave her $200 to buy a dress. The non-sexual outings convinced her a friendship was taking root. She said contact stopped instantly when she thought she was pregnant. Then 2 to 3 or 4 weeks after their first encounter, she says, I remember thinking I was pregnant and telling him that, and I got sent away. She said the contact stopped instantly, she says, until 4 years later when she was again in Las Vegas, called him up. He offered her a trip to Valley, Colorado, which she accepted but skipped. Intermittent contact initiated by Sarah Neese over the years ended in 1996 at the time when she was struggling financially and physically from a car accident. By then, she had completed college courses in nursing and recalled that Cosby had once offered to pay her $500 for every A she earned. So he's big into education. In the last conversation she had with Cosby, she reminded Cosby of his offer. And supposedly this was overheard and confirmed to people by her sister. She remembers, I got off the phone and I was crying so bad. He made me feel horrible, like I was trying to do something to him. That was not my intention. I didn't say anything. You just said this, you made good on it. That's all that was said. The next day, she says, came a call from a secretary directing Sarah Neese to a $10,000 wire transfer. So she took money. I see why you didn't testify. No, the prosecutor wouldn't have handled this shit. You'd be exposed.
Because this is a big grown person who said somebody that slapped 2 pills on the table. He said, "Take it," and I just took it. I mean, you end of the story to me. I don't want to hear from you after that. That's so dumb.
Let me finish. Let's finish the video. because I got to wrap this up, and we got to talk about the two other issues. But yeah, this is gone.
That what seemed to be a pretty clear MO for Cosby is going to be mitigated in terms of its punishment.
He should have.
My job as a defense attorney,
She was trying
and
to
I'm
think
very
of
proud of
something
the
to
work
say.
we did in upholding the Constitution. And I'm very proud that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court was not influenced by the court of public opinion. And so in that regard, it does not bother me in the slightest. I also believe that we have a trend in our courtrooms where the courtrooms are being infiltrated by the court of public opinion, and that leads to miscarriages of justice. I believe you'll see that with the Weinstein case as well, which I consulted on. That was the same scenario, and I have no problem with a just and righteous verdict if you get there a fair way. But when you cheat to get there, there is no righteousness or justice in that verdict, and that, unfortunately, is what happened. Both in
Hold on
Mr.
one second.
Cosby's
I'm with you that the game has to be played. We all know the adage that 100 guilty men should go free, or women, so that one innocent is not punished wrongfully. I hear you. But let's not fake the funk here either. You had a jury hear testimony from Constant and other women, and
You've always been fake, Chris.
Convicted him. So this wasn't that it was all manipulation.
Well,
this was a real jury. They got to hear it and found him guilty.
You also had a jury that heard evidence they shouldn't have heard, both in the form of this deposition that was obtained illegally. And you also had a jury that heard evidence from, frankly, other other accusers it never should have heard, because we don't live in a world where we try people's character, we try crimes. So I do not believe we had a fair trial, and I don't believe you can look at this verdict and put any stock in it, frankly. And also, let's keep in mind that all of this prevented Mr. Cosby from being able to tell his story from the witness stand because of that deposition. So let's not say, oh, this is just a technicality, or we know what really happened. You don't know what really happened. This trial would have been entirely different. And also, it never should have happened in the first place.
I'll give you that point because we know it, because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court just litigated that for us. We're good on that. The point about it would have been totally different. Why was Cosby not allowed to testify in his own defense because he gave a deposition in a civil trial?
The point is that by taking that illegal deposition, using those words against him, it made it very difficult for him to take the stand.
But they were his words. I'm just saying he could have taken the stand. As long as he's going to tell the truth, he couldn't have been in any trouble, right?
Well, I'm not talking about the potential for perjury. I'm talking about the fact that we live in a society where you shouldn't have your words used against you. Had he taken the stand, all of those
I don't know if I can play anymore. He knows, Chris Coleman, like I said, the former prosecutor. He knows that a defendant does not have to take the witness stand in his own case.
Absolutely. His whole line of questioning from beginning to end is disgraceful. It's worse than bias. It's just a disgrace. Just a disgrace.
I'm just going to finish it out. I'm a professional. I'll finish it so everybody couldn't
that
hear
he
it,
said
but
during
that's
this deposition, whether in whatever context they were taken, what unfairly laid out in the way that the civil attorneys did. This was 4 days of deposition. It made it impossible. No defense attorney would have said, yeah, sure, take the stand and deal with these again, a deposition statements that were illegally obtained.
Bonjean, I do not disagree with you from a perspective of legal strategy. I'm just saying, in terms of common sense, he could have still testified. I understand why strategically you would have been nuts to stay on the case if he insisted on doing it when you knew what was coming. But I'm just saying, if he had nothing to fear of his own words, he could have made a different choice.
No, even innocent people plead the fifth all the time.
Absolutely, they do. But I'm saying the idea that this deposition ruined it for him because now he couldn't testify, that's not true.
No, the deposition,
but it would have made it hard.
It wasn't just about the deposition being highly prejudicial if he took the stand. The words that you yourself just quoted came into evidence that were obtained illegally. So if someone is physically coerced into making a statement, we recognize, that's unfair. We can't use that statement. But this is no different in some ways because someone was tricked.
Coerced confession is where somebody's made to say something they don't believe.
Not always. Some people are coerced into saying the truth, I guess. But you're talking about statements that were induced involuntarily, in a sense, by making promises
Absolutely.
that they did not live up to.
Absolutely.
And you talked earlier in this first segment. What does that mean for these prosecutions where the government needs to rely on these cooperators?
Absolutely.
Well, if you can't trust the government, do you think Weiselberg or any of these cooperators will come forward with these prosecutions and help the government?
If you can't trust them.
If you can't trust them?
Nope.
I don't think so.
Me either.
So,
that's why you got to play the game the right way. And they screwed this up. And that's what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court just said. And they can appeal it. We'll see if they can change the outcome at the next level, if they have any way to do that. But they can't retry it, not for Andrew Constand, not after what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court just
They're the highest court of the land. You
said. Not
that.
It was just the particulars of what this was about.
I mean,
I
understand.
I appreciate you making the case.
All right, that's it.
Thank you for taking the opportunity.
I had enough of this jerk.
Disgrace, man. I mean, for him to say they can appeal it. Come on, man. Chris Cuomo, you went to Fordham Law School, man. Stop.
This is a former prosecutor. He knows. I want to know how he did a criminal procedure. How did he get a job as a prosecutor? Well, no. Well, we know why. Daddy Mario. Shawn, I want you to add something on this.
Well, I'm listening to this CNN interview, and it's just propaganda. I mean, your Chris Cuomo clearly does not understand the law, and he really has shown that he really doesn't have really good journalism skills.
No, he's lying, Shawn. It's
I know.
He doesn't understand. He's lying.
Yeah, he's lying. And the whole thing is, they've been trying this case in the court of public opinion for the last 2 or 3 years, and they've been trying to demonize Bill Cosby instead of going out here and reporting the case objectively. Now, that's not journalism in any way, shape, or form. A good journalist, they want to go out here and present the facts and let people make their own observations and draw their own conclusions. They don't want to go out here and conjecture opinion and present it as news. And that's what we saw in the case of Bill Cosby from day one. People have been trying to demonize Bill Cosby, trying to present him as a black brute, basically trying to push him the idea that he's a sexual deviant. And we can clearly see this based on the way Chris Cuomo was acting in that CNN report. And we can see it by other reports that have been talked about in the mainstream media. The mainstream media has not reported this case in any sort of objective manner. They have not really pointed out that, like in the case that you presented with the victim who said that Bill Cosby assaulted her, that this woman, after this alleged assault went on, she still continued to have a relationship with him. What woman who has been sexually violated goes out here and continues to have a relationship with a man for several years? That's a critical question any good journalist is going to ask, because that's going to really just mar the woman's credibility as related to her argument to being a victim. I mean, victims, they immediately go to law enforcement to get justice. They don't go out here and have relationships like this woman that you talked about and Andrea Constand had.
Yes. Teresa Serek-Niece.
Well,
this is her. This is the article. Hold on. I want to show everybody the article. It's in the chat. Y'all can go highlight it and copy and go read it yourself. But I shared the screen for you. It speaks. She tells on herself what she did. Albert, you were about to say something. If you can make it quick, because I got to move to the next topic, please. But
notice the points that I made before in the report with the attorney. I'll focus more on the attorney because I've already talked about Cuomo. Notice she mentions bad act witnesses. I've already looked at how important they were in this case. Also look at the deposition, how important. And what got, I think, silly, probably because you got upset at this, was Cuomo's insistence on why Cosby did not testify in his defense. First of all, because the civil case document and deposition was unsealed, it could be used in the case. Therefore, if Cosby had testified, the prosecution was using against Cosby on the stand. So Cosby would have to be asked about the deposition, and they probably would be quoting parts of the deposition to him. And so his own words would be used against him. And as the attorney for Cosby noted, no defense attorney in their right mind would want their client going to testify on their behalf with a document. A deposition, after all, is a legal document. So you have a deposition with your words, and you're going to put your client on the stand to testify in his defense or her defense against the deposition that they already filed and use that against him or her? No way. That's not going to happen. I mean, unless you have completely incompetent and ineffective attorneys, I don't believe Cosby did. It just wouldn't make sense. I mean, even I, as a non-attorney, somebody who never went to law school, and as a complete layman, even I know that's not logical. So that's why I mentioned the unsealing of the document and the deposition and the bad act witnesses. And finally, the point I want to make in regards to this, I think what the narrative of this has been thus far, it's hard to say because it's just happened yesterday, but a day is an eternity in the news cycle. I think the narrative seems to be that Cosby was convicted, and stressing that, yes, he was convicted and he served time, and that it's unfortunate that this happened. Cuomo did make one good point, and that is the prosecution screwed up in this case. You could argue they did, or should I say the prosecutor screwed up. Yeah, you could argue they did by deciding to prosecute this case, but I would primarily look at the judge in this case, because it's the judge that allowed the document to be unsealed. It's the judge that allowed the bad act witnesses. And I think the time period that was allowed was, I think, from the early 80s, some part of the early 80s until, I guess, present or up to a certain point. But it's the judge that you have to look at in this case. And the fact that the judge had a prior relationship with the prior prosecutor, Castor, because they had run for DA. And then there was antagonism between O'Neill and Castor. When you add all of these elements up, it's no wonder that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court stated that the trial, that it's no wonder they vacated the decision. I want to stress that term. Vacated means that the conviction was basically rendered null and void. It's vacated. That's why he was released.
That's right.
They eliminated the conviction.
And this is the type of crap you get when you see someone fight for justice. Shout out to Jennifer Bongine and the Bongine Law Group. I'm going to put their website in here, but let's say hello to Bill Orr, who studied at the University of South Florida, retired principal who said, "This is Jennifer Bongine, the attorney who got Bill Cosby out of jail, a champion for victimized women everywhere. You go, Jennifer, straight to hell." People who don't do research, ladies and gentlemen, they hurt themselves. They hurt themselves. They know nothing. But I'm going to show you where you can go and look at her website. I got to move on to the next topic. Journalists is supposed to be neutral. Absolutely. They're supposed to be fair and balanced and impartial. There's journalistic integrity. And you have,
I don't know about that. That's the theory. That's the idea. But it's these days that's rarely the case.
Right, like
and I speak as someone who was a journalist for over 20 years. That's the ideal. It's the way it should be, but it's not the reality.
That is a website that Bongine, she's actually licensed in 2 different states, including New York, Illinois, and New Jersey's bar. The New Jersey's bar. I'm only in Louisiana, but who knows? I might get into something else too. But shout out to them. Next topic I want to get into, because we got to move on. I don't want to hold you guys up too long, but I want to talk about this because since the Cosby verdict came out, a lot of people have been upset at your Felicia Rashad, who was a co-star of Bill Cosby. And from day one, she has supported Bill Cosby. And she tweeted out this tweet. I'm going to put, this comes via Yahoo News or Yahoo Entertainment. And that's the thing. This is just entertainment. It has no other value, but I want to show you all what they do. but this is what happened. Miss Rashad put this tweet up. Finally, a terrible wrong is being righted. A miscarriage of justice is corrected. And she faced backlash as a result of this. Now, mind you, this is a man that gave her a job and she had been friends with for over 30 plus years. Let's not also forget that Bill Cosby gave her sister, Debbie Allen, a job when she was executive producer of A Different World, a spinoff of The Cosby Show. So, Janet Hubert, who got fired from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and just last year, we saw that she made amends with Will Smith. She wrote this: Felicia, what are you thinking? I don't know you. And that's the first thing. I don't know you. So I take it she doesn't even know Bill Cosby either, if she doesn't know Felicia Rashad. But to say this was terribly wrong. Everyone knew what he was doing back then. How could you not? Get your umbrella, sister. Here comes the shit shower. I'm outraged that he has been released. Yes, he is an old-ass guilty man. And we saw earlier Janet Hubert just got a movie deal. Got cast in a project. So I think that has something to do with it. Of course, they go after that low-hanging fruit. But bottom line is, these are people who don't know a damn thing about American law. And there's a reason why I can see why Will Smith fired you. There's a reason why when I watched that, I remember watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion, Alfonso Ribeiro wasn't in that room. Because if you go on YouTube and look at some stuff that Alfonso has said, he has talked dirty about Janet and how she ruined the relationship on that set, the chemistry. Now, I tried to be civil and ignore it because I wasn't there. But for you to attack someone for their opinion, and I'm also going to we can deal with two of them at the same time. Howard University, they also threw Felicia Rashad under the bus. They released this statement: survivors of sexual assault will always be our priority. While Dean Rashad has acknowledged in her follow-up tweet that victims must be heard and believed, her initial tweet lacked sensitivity towards survivors of sexual assault. In this country, we say again, people accused of a crime, just because it's an accusation doesn't mean it's true. There's due process. Innocent until proven guilty. Personal positions of university leadership do not reflect Howard University's policies. We will continue to advocate for survivors fully and support their right to be heard. Howard will stand with survivors and challenge systems that would deny them justice. We have full confidence that our faculty and school leadership will live up to this sacred commitment. Brother Andrew, this is the same Howard University. Wait, let's look at this. Is Howard University that has Howard University Law School on its campus. Howard University. Hold on. This is not the same Howard University that Thurgood Marshall graduated from, that has his name in the School of Law. This is not the same Howard University that Charles Houston taught Thurgood Marshall. Y'all should know who Charles Houston was, because before Thurgood Marshall, Charles Hamilton Houston was a bad man in the courtroom. He had a nickname. He was known as the man who killed Jim Crow, because he went throughout the South trying impossible cases defending black men, like a Bill Cosby, who would be falsely accused of sexual offenses and crimes, and defend them. This is the former dean of Howard University Law School. And I'm pretty sure Bill Cosby, because he actually was very charitable with his money and giving monies to historically black colleges and universities, I know Howard University got something out of it. Even if they didn't, it showed a different world increased enrollment in those schools. How dare they say this? How dare they attack? When they hired Felicia Rashad, did they not know that Felicia Rashad defended Bill Cosby back in 2014 when this stuff started? Am I right?
Good question. Isn't that a good question? I mean, her position in support for Bill Cosby is widely known. Widely known. And your point is dead on point, man. This is, you almost want to. It's so sad to where we're at in a country. I just want to go back to Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo is a jack of nothing and an expert at nothing. He graduated law school. I just looked at his Wikipedia page and got into journalism, by the way. So he wasn't trained as a journalism, and he has no practicing experience that I can discern. You said he was a prosecutor, but he probably was a prosecutor for half a minute. I always tell people it takes 10 good years to be a lawyer, to be a competent lawyer. At least 10 good years. Other than that, you just mouthing stuff that you might have heard from somebody. So his whole line of questioning that the other lawyer was a joke. But he asked her, he knew it was wrong. He knew before it came out of his mouth that it was wrong. And he was just doing it. And by the way, CNN and MSNBC, their ratings are so low now that they're just desperate to revive and say these stupid things to get ratings up. So that, this is all playing into it. Media coverage of this case.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point because what you hear about Cuomo is that he is a former prosecutor, and he certainly is an attorney. What he isn't, though, is basically, I don't think he's much of a working journalist. He's not unlike a lot of people who come in, or a number of people who come into journalism. They don't have journalistic backgrounds. Nothing wrong with that, but
the whole media, TV field is filled with people who are not journalists. Filled.
Right, precisely. This is one of the things that I note to people about TV news versus where I come from, which is print journalism. See, TV news is rather amorphous in some respects, because when you see shows like Chris Cuomo's show, Don Lemon's show, Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, Chris Hayes, I think, was a journalist before he came into MSNBC. But these are kind of news shows. These are news shows, panel shows. They're not hardcore news broadcasts.
Right.
That's very important to note. They're not news broadcast shows, unlike your flagship early evening broadcast on each of the major networks, plus CNN, plus the broadcast on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, also CNBC and Fox Business. So that's very important to note. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point about Cuomo that when you listen to his questions, he doesn't sound like he's asking it from a legal point of view. He sounds like he's asking it as sort of a reporter,
as
sort of layman type reporter. But he's not approaching it from that perspective. I mean, if I listen to those questions, I wouldn't know that Chris Cuomo was a former prosecutor or is an attorney.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
right.
I want to very interesting points on that. But I wanted to focus on Janet Huber and Howard University. Howard is a private school, of course, so I mean, there's not necessarily a free speech issue if they did fire Felicia Rashad. People have been calling for that, but she's been supporting them before that, so it would make them look like fools if they did anything like that. But Felicia, I don't think has got anything to worry about. But Shawn, what are your thoughts on Howard University and on Janet Hubert? I know you did a video, but I want you.
With Janet Hubert, this is just her trying to bootlick and brown nose those people in the entertainment industry. She's pandering to those bosses at these agencies, pandering to these movie studio executives and these people on the Hollywood left who want to believe that Bill Cosby is guilty. So she's going out here trying to go out here and take a shot at Bill Cosby in an effort to try to springboard her career. And this is something many black celebrities have done over the last 3 to 5 years. As this Bill Cosby case has gone on, we've seen all of these celebrities go out here and attack Bill Cosby in order to get favor from these Hollywood executives and from these producers. And what's really troubling to me is that they're going to go out here and throw Bill Cosby under the bus, because the great irony is, if it wasn't for Bill Cosby, most of these people would not be working right now. Because your Janet Hubert, she doesn't really understand that the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was basically only put on NBC because they wanted to get another Cosby show. And if it wasn't for Bill Cosby, nobody in Black Hollywood would be working right now. But it's really egregious to see all of these entertainers throw Bill Cosby under the bus. And it's even more egregious to see Howard University, a historically black college, go out here and throw Felicia Rashad under the bus. Because your Felicia Rashad has been standing with Bill Cosby, and she wasn't being insensitive to victims of sexual assault. No, she was standing up for her friend who was innocent of any wrongdoing, and it was proven in a court of law based on the facts as related to the evidence. So your claims of, oh, this is going to hurt sexual assault victims is completely false as I see it, because no sexual assault victims would be hurt by Felicia Rashad going out here and making support of a person who has been sexually assaulted. No, what really hurts is this effort to demonize Bill Cosby, because this effort to demonize Bill Cosby takes the spotlight off of actual sex crimes and puts it on a case where the media basically tried an innocent man in the court of public opinion instead of sticking to the facts as related to the case.
Most definitely.
Well, actually, what happened was that the conviction itself was vacated. So I don't know who's proven that he was innocent. Only a trial, the trial that happened where he was convicted, that conviction was vacated.
Well,
so
he was, but
now there won't be another trial.
Sir, you're 100% wrong, and Gavin answered that earlier. Once they reverse the case, there is no trial, so his innocence has been restored. Gavin went through a very long, detailed argument about that. This man is now innocent. There's stuff about that he's not been proven innocent of the charges. First of all, the 50 all other cases are not they're not charges. They are people who came out of the woodwork and made claims, none of which are proven. And so that they can't even do anything. They can't sue civilly, and they can't get him criminally. So none of I don't even know how they keep running those people, because their case is not proven. They're not proven cases. They're just, just women. And Drew Heffer did an analysis of that many of these claims aren't even rape. They were like, oh, he touched me here. He felt my breast. He bumped me inappropriately. I mean, this is what was passing off as allegations.
Right. The one lady that testified, Shalana Lasha, and this is in the actual Supreme Court's opinion, what she alleged to happen is that Bill Cosby, she was at home with her grandmother, got a call from Bill Cosby because she was trying to be a model, an actress, and she doesn't allege rape. What she alleged what happened at the house is that he humped her leg while she was passed out. No sex, no oral sex, nothing, no penetration. He humped her leg with his balls. I'm just telling you, this is what she said at the trial. Like a dog. I mean,
those are allegations.
I couldn't believe
like the bad act witnesses. The bad act witnesses were all accusers, because as I mentioned before, there was no prior case. There wasn't anything on the record. There weren't any prior rulings that had anything to do with these witnesses. So they were just basically, as I called them, character witnesses. They were basically character witnesses making a case, trying to make the case that would influence a jury. I mean, that's basically what I would say about them. If you talk about those bad act witnesses, as for other accusers, again, they're accusers. So hard to define the veracity of their stories, one way or the other.
We have a country now that literally somebody can say you got a big nose and that's it, and then that you're going to be destroyed based on that accusation. Your nose can be as small and tiny and irrelevant to your face as it could be, but just as long as somebody says that's all we need to do nowadays. I mean, we've gone to a level of patheticness that will keep us in the kind of conflict that we're in right now with this case. I mean, the case is Bill Cosby's case should have never gone as far as it has.
Grains for riced cauliflower in a ready-to-go meal. A gluten-free meal full of flavor. Healthy choice power bowls. Find us in the freezer aisle.
Sorry about that. That was an ad.
Okay. I don't know where that came from. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Again, that's why I mentioned the atmosphere in which not only the trial was conducted, but also even now, how it's been the reaction to it.
It's been
it's going to be pretty tough. It's going to be pretty tough right now because they're going to be. You're going to have people feeling. You have a situation where because he was convicted in the trial, the belief is that the conviction is upheld and the conviction should have stood. But the reality is the Supreme Court says the conviction doesn't stand. They vacated it. So what I've seen on news reports, news segments and others is, I think it was one of the prosecutors that dealt with the Cosby trial, was saying you shouldn't forget that he was found guilty by a jury. I think she noted this on MSNBC or NBC. The problem with that is, he was found guilty by a jury. The problem is the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania ruled that conviction has been vacated. They eliminated the conviction. So even though he's convicted, the conviction is now eliminated. So it's irrelevant whether you state he was convicted in that trial, because the conviction no longer stands. Even though he spent over 2 years in, I mean, stressing that point, it's kind of like saying you get into a car accident and your car gets totaled, right? There's no use talking about what your car. There's no use talking about what you're like prior, unless it's relevant to the fact that your car got totaled. It matters the car got totaled. What's the insurance going to be for? I mean, the bringing up the point about yes, he's guilty. Well, yeah, that's why he was in prison. But the conviction's overturned. So what use is stating he was found guilty by a jury? Again, I think that's part of the narrative they're going with, because at this point, I don't think they have much to go with in terms of what you see on TV, maybe in newspapers, maybe in magazines. What more do they have to say? The Supreme Court ruled basically that it's a vacated conviction because of numerous errors. Numerous. I mean, I approach this from the standpoint of logic and common sense. Whether you like Cosby or not, you don't have to like him to know that the trial was ridiculous because of the antagonism between the judge and the former prosecutor, because of the judge's decisions, and because of what occurred. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, what is saying? Well, he was convicted by a jury. Yeah, what did the jury get to see? They got to see 5 bad act witnesses that probably shouldn't have been allowed. They got to deal with deposition that probably shouldn't have been allowed because you had a prior civil case. Again, it's like, I mean, the term that I used on a prior show, the WeAllBe show, was it's a legal term. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so if it's a misused term, fine with me. But I'm fine with being corrected on that. But it was fruit of the poison tree, or fruit of the poisonous tree. That's essentially what this trial was.
Right.
You have a messed up trial.
That
You have a
means
messed up trial.
with fruit of the poisonous tree, you're right. What fruit of the poisonous tree means when for instance, if a detective receives a tip about received a tip from someone about some evidence being found, like let's say bricks of cocaine are in this storage place, and let's say that confession, or if I shouldn't say tip, but let me change. Let's say it was a confession. It was done based off of coercion, or he beat this person nearly to death where he finally got it. And he goes and gets that based off of that confession. Well, and let's say when they get to the storage facility, they found several dead bodies and so forth. Well, based off of that confession, and if it went before a judge and the judge finds out that it was a coerced confession, then that throws out the whole case because you did this illegally. Confessions have to be voluntarily and intelligent. So that's what fruit of the poisonous tree is. But you're essentially right, because once this was tainted, everything else could not be admitted. So the case fell apart from there.
That's my point. That's the point that I want to stress to people. See, I'm not viewing it from what I think of Cosby personally. I have no interest in that.
Yeah, well, Janet, a lot of
not personal. Yeah, I understand people have their personal views about him, and I understand that, but I'm basing it on the trial, and the trial was ridiculous. It just was. It was ridiculous. Right. It's no surprise it got overturned by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I'm not surprised at all.
That is at the end of the day. It's about what the law states, not whether I like Bill Cosby or not. Because I mean, I know, I know of comedians who just don't like Bill Cosby, who just believe Bill Cosby is guilty because the way he talked about black people, or the way he didn't like like a comedian Earthquake was on Vlad and said he didn't like Bill Cosby, F him, because he hated Def Comedy Jam. He would have got Def Comedy Jam kicked off. That had nothing to do with the case. You focus on the evidence. Right. You focus on the evidence. But I want to wrap it up, around for over 2 hours. But Shawn, did you have anything last you want to add to this?
Not really. I mean, outside of the whole media demonizing Bill Cosby and just the way this case was handled, I'm glad that Bill Cosby was vindicated, and I'm glad that he is finally free. That's all I'm going to say about things from here on in. I mean, but the fight still goes on as related to him getting civil justice, and I'm hoping that something is done about Kevin Steele, because he really violated the law, his office, and he really participated in some prosecutorial misconduct, as I see it, and he should not be either an attorney and he should not be a district attorney.
Hey, Black Mama, how you doing? Good to see you. Luscious Gayness, Lindell Moore. Howard should advocate for the wrongfully convicted. Absolutely. PD Chicago, Gary James, I see all of you. Rosalind, I see you. Someone had asked, how much trouble is Attorney Gloria Allred? What do you mean, Gloria Allred in? Gloria Allred basically is an ambulance chaser. I don't know about her I think she is being investigated by the bar for something. I remember reading about, I don't think it had anything to do with Cosby, but it was over some type of violations that she may have done with her clients, per se. But
hold on, Gloria Allred is not an ambulance chaser. She's worse than that. And she manufactures fake cases. I mean, the list of cases that she has manufactured is unbelievable. You go back to a couple of the Chris Brown women that she brought against Chris Brown. I mean, come on, man. She was caught in Cosby coaching people to testify at the trial. I mean, she's manufacturing cases. How she's gotten away with it is I don't know. It's as transparent as in your face.
Yeah.
Go on in her conference room and fake cry over these allegations. I mean, it's embarrassing. At least when you say someone's out, and I'm a civil attorney, so I don't even like the term. There is a real accident, and attorneys who have faked accidents and prosecuted board claims that when they get caught, they lose their license. So, but there's usually a real accident. But this Gloria Orwell is manufacturing cases.
Yeah. Right. I want to make sure everybody can get their contact information, where they can be found. Albert, why don't you start?
Oh, okay. I'm on Facebook under my name, Albert Lanier, and you can contact me also on Twitter at Critic Inc. CRITICINC. So at Critic Inc. on Twitter and under my name on Facebook.
At Critic Inc. Andrew?
The Jones Law Group on Facebook, and that's the best place to catch me at this point.
Jones Law Group on Facebook. Shawn, do some plugins right now.
All right. You can find me on Facebook on facebook.com/Shawn S. James. You can find me on Twitter on twitter.com. That's Shawn S. James. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Shawn James, by just typing it in the search bar. And I have several books that are out as part of the SJS Direct 2021 catalog. ISIS Revenge of the Cyber Goddess and John Haynes Taking Care of Business. And I also have other great positive Black fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, the Thetas, and the books of the ISIS, East Demon, John Haynes series. And you can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And I'm hoping you guys pick them up because I'm looking for my first paperback and ebook sale for the month of July.
Most definitely. You guys, Al, Andrew, you guys got to check out Shawn's books on Amazon. He's a great writer and author. The Man Crisis is one of my favorites. He's working on The Woman Crisis right now, which is I'm sure it'll be a great read. I'm actually working on, and I'll tell everybody, there's a book on the Cosby case myself, based off the research I've done. Let me say this, because someone asked, can Cosby sue accusers? Well, I know he had filed, there were some countersuits that were involved, but here's the problem with that. Some of the suits had been settled by his insurance company. He did not settle those suits. Just like with Michael Jackson and the Jordy Chandler case, it was the insurance company that settled for Bill Cosby. Or not even for Bill Cosby, they just settled it and got it out of there, including Janice Dickinson. Anybody can be sued for anything. If he wants to sue for defamation or character and so forth, he may want to do that. But again, you got to remember this too. The problem with that is that Bill Cosby has taken a hit financially since this stuff is going on. I mean, you're talking about 4 or 5 years, really a little longer than that, of litigation, because attorneys are not doing this for free when they go answer lawsuits that are filed in Boston or in LA or New York or so forth. Like I say again, his best recourse would be going after Montgomery County. I think he has a great chance of doing that. A great chance to do that based off the loss of his income, based off of his, pain and suffering, being incarcerated wrongly, because the Supreme Court lays it out saying that this was wrong, period. So he can present that as part of his exhibits and evidence and make his case for malicious prosecution if he chooses to in our 1983. So this is far from over. But, you know, the damage, sadly, to him has been done because at his age, 83, his old 84, the court of public opinion and court of law are two different things. But we also have to remember that it should be the court of law should be first and foremost when we make determinations, because all suspects are innocent until proven guilty. And we wouldn't want a situation. A lot of people like to say, well, what if this was your sister or daughter that was accused? And I'm sorry, that accused Bill Cosby. How would you feel? Well, I, of course, would think I would stand by my daughter or my sister, and I would defend her vigorously. However, I can also reverse that and say, what if this was your son or father and brother that was falsely accused? How would you feel? So let's be fair. Two can play that game. This has been another edition of Gavin Richard Presents, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to please, this channel is not going to be monetized. They will not monetize this live stream. So I ask, as you look at the ticker at the bottom, if you would kindly give to the Cash App. If you kindly give to the PayPal, the Cash App is Gavin Richard Esquire. The PayPal and Google Pay is my email, gavin.grich1@gmail.com, or you can go through Zelle and donate directly through my cell phone. There, that is my cell phone number. I'm sure people are going to call me trying to see if I can do. So I appreciate everybody that watches this on Thursdays. I appreciate my guests. I want you to give a round of applause to Al and to Andrew Jones and Shawn James, who have been on here for over 2 hours now. I appreciate it. This was a great show. Gentlemen, I thank you again. You're all welcome to tune in and to come back and be guests anytime to talk about issues. Al, I'm sure we'll have another true crimes thing. Maybe we can do something on Sunday, perhaps, about some topics. But yeah, but I enjoy doing this, guys, and this is great. This was a great broadcast. But you guys, again, pick up the Constitution. You go online and read. It's not that hard. And even when you look at some of the things in the Constitution that, of course, we know the 3/5 compromise is not something we're proud of. But in the long run of things, when you look at the Bill of Rights, when you look at the constitutional amendments, it's not that bad of a document. All right, guys. Good night. Thank you. This has been another edition of Gavin Richard Presents. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you are blessed and doing safe. Let us end on a positive note, guys. Let's get on up. Please donate to the Cash App, and also please download, if you have not, check out the stream for Gotta Get On Up. Available on iTunes, on Apple, and on Spotify. My latest single. We have some more music that I'm going to be making and dropping soon. So I appreciate it, everybody. Happy 4th of July weekend, too.
Happy 4th to everybody.
Happy 4th, and everybody have a good evening.
Barbecue.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
It's time to get on up.
Girl, come on. Gotta dance to the beat, because on the dance floor is where we're going. Show me what you got. Gotta feel the groove. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Right now the party's wasted. There's nothing much to do. But once the groove gets started, tell me, what do you have to lose? Just look into my eyes, girl, as we glide across the room. And what to my surprise now, the beat takes hold of you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move. feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Tell the DJ play the whispers. Rock steady in the mood. Put on earth, wind, and fire. Tonight we're gonna groove. Show me how you do the four corners. Electric slide or two. Hit the bus stop. I'll do the bunny hop, baby. It's really up to you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Now 2020 hasn't been the best year of all times. We've been dealing with death, the pandemic, racism, bad policing, and all the bad rhymes. But like Uncle Snoop once said, if you're breathing, you're achieving. So if you're ready, I need you all to get on up. Are you ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Get your butt on the dance floor. 5 and 6 and 7, 8. This jam we appreciate. We're gonna slide and step on the beat. On the dance floor is where we'll feel the groove. Get on the floor. Get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the floor. Yeah, gotta get on. Come on, baby, gotta get on. Baby, feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the floor.